good morning. Welcome to our demonstration or our webinar on No Code, No Fuss. Want to talk to you today about where Celaton fits into that and to help really understand where No Code, No Fuss sits with regards to business process automation and intelligent process automation. So I'm Gina Gray, I'm the Commercial Director at Celaton, and I've been here for 6 years. I joined in January 2014, and I've been working in the IT, software and communications sector now for over 20 years, sadly. But I've been more recently very involved in the world of automation through Celaton. And I've been very interested in its growth as a sector, if you like. So when I joined back in 2014, the world of AI, if you like, was a very small one, and it's now started to really grow, particularly with the likes of RPA coming through. So let's have a look at the world of AI itself. So when I joined in 2014, the words artificial intelligence and AI used to strike the fear of God into people. There was an assumption that artificial intelligence was going to take over the world. We'd be ruled by robots. We wouldn't have the lives we lead, and it was all quite terrifying. In reality, it's nothing of the sort. So artificial intelligence is a very broad term, and it's hugely general at the broader level, if you like. So in fact, any of us that uses phones with Siri in it uses AI every single day. We've seen driverless cars being tested. Interestingly, Celaton is based out of Milton Keynes. And I remember a few months ago, they were actually doing testing of Google driverless cars using AI in Milton Keynes itself. But then actually, artificial intelligence is more applied to businesses now and has become much more widespread, more commonplace. So organizations are using it for process automation. They're using it for workflow automation and task automation. So where historically automation was very focused on the manufacturing side of the world, it's moved forwards now into businesses. So your daily office workers are now using automation as well as in the manufacturing and on the manufacturing floors. But not only are we looking at automation and AI in business applications, but you can also narrow it even further down to specific tasks, which include things like data extraction and entry of that data into systems in an automated way using machine learning. And that can now carry out other tasks as well, such as validation, checking against other data sources to make sure the data that's being processed is true and correct. So AI now is not such a scary word. It's almost a commonplace word. And if you like, the difference that I've seen over the last 6 years, it's almost expected that an organization, a business, certainly in the enterprise market, will have some kind of AI within its business processes. So let's just have a look at what is intelligent process automation. So one of the things I've found interesting over the years is the different types of terminology and the different phrases that the analysts have come up with, and they do seem to change fairly rapidly. And there doesn't seem to be a complete cohesion of all the terms. Whereas with intelligent process automation, this has been adopted by the analysts. It's also now been recognised as a term within the industry. But I think it's important that we understand what intelligent process automation is. If you look at the sort of Wikipedia type description, It's seen as a set of innovative technologies that bring together robotic process automation and machine learning. And it's designed to assist workers taking over repetitive, routine and manual tasks. So if you like, you can look at intelligent process automation as the next part of the robotic process automation journey. A lot of companies have invested in RPA over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, in fact, and it's become much more widespread and mainstream, but has limitations. And people now want to be able to do more in the automation space within their business processes. So by applying machine learning, you end up with this intelligent process automation tool, if you like. But it's not just one technology. So IPA is made up of multiple technologies. So we've talked about robotic process automation and we've talked about machine learning. But actually, there's a whole raft of other areas. So when you're looking at documents that come into an organization that are unstructured, so they're just text, you need to be able to understand that text. So you've got some natural language processing in there. You've also got virtual agents. So these would be your chat bots. So when you're on a website, you'll often have a little box ping up that says, "How can I help you today?" And that will be a chatbot in many, many cases, certainly within the first few questions. And what you can often find is once those questions are unanswerable by the chatbot, then you actually get to engage with a human themselves. And then you've got intelligent character recognition. So that's being able to extract characters from a page. And then you would apply other technologies within IPA to actually carry on the processing of that document. And then your smart workflow. So this is where you have workflow orchestration. So you're able to push certain pieces of processing, certain tasks to either humans or automate them, but with technology within a process. So IPA is effectively made up of lots of different technologies. And what's important is that you choose the right technology for the task or the application that you have. So, for example, you wouldn't have a chatbot trying to process an invoice. You know, chatbot is helping you as a human to understand information, whereas you'd use a different type of process, such as your machine learning, to process an invoice. But the output is that effectively you want to be able to deliver automation into many different areas within your business. So what is no code, no fuss? It's something that we've adopted as a terminology, if you like, over the last sort of 6 to 7 months. And if we take a step back to about 12, 18 months ago, there was lots of talk about low code, which was really focused on initially developers being able to carry out the development in a much more seamless and faster way. But actually that took a step further and started to enable those less technical people, so more those business users, to be able to do some type of coding, but not in a pure play coding way. And we've seen this actually with the RPA vendors. So if you look at the likes of UiPath, Blue Prism, etc., they use a drag and drop using a logic model driven through a user interface, which means that business users now have the ability to actually create the process, the logic, the outcome that they're looking for without needing to necessarily go to a developer and get them to carry that out with coding. The challenge you have with that is it can be a distraction, and it also means that you're taking up time away from your day job, if you like, to be able to create these process flows with this low code. So what we mean by no code is certainly with our software, which is machine learning, it enables users to carry out their day job without having to do any coding, whether it be low code or complex code. And we do that by applying machine learning algorithms into a process called human in the loop, which enables the processing of documents, exceptions, and anomalies within the end-to-end process without anybody having to carry out any coding, any dragging and dropping. It's all done within the process, the end-to-end process of processing documents. And the way that works is the business rules are all configured within the end-to-end workflow, and those business rules are applied by the software. If the business rules are not being able to be applied because the document, for example, is non-compliant, or if there's an exception, then a human is able to interact with that document and carry out teaching, which the software then learns through the consequence of processing the document itself. So it's almost as if the software is looking over the shoulder of the human. So that's why we refer to it as human in the loop. And the outcome means that you get the processing of the document, you get the outcome you're looking for without that human having to move away from their day job, the processing of the documents in their normal workplace. So why is this needed? Why is it important? Well, when you look at documents, certainly, that come into an organisation every single day, most of them you are not in control of as a business. So documents come in from suppliers, they come in from customers, and they're unpredictable. So you can't control what those documents look like. You can't control the format, you can't control the layout, and you have different structures and different volumes of documents depending on what they are. And if you look at a traditional document processing, then you'll end up with lots and lots of repetitive manual tasks. And that takes up a lot of time. It's not often rewarding work for the humans. And the sorts of use cases and processes that I'm referring to here are finance and accounting type processes. So you've got invoices, you've got accounts receivable, you've got sales order processes. You've also got claims. So you could have insurance type claims. You could have claims for delayed journey on trains. You could have missold insurance or PPI, those type claims. And then you have customer correspondence type workflows. So where you've got customers sending in letters and emails and web forms where they're making a complaint about something, or they have a query or a question. And that often, when you look at the tasks that need to happen to process those documents in those types of use cases, are very repetitive. When you look at the tasks, a lot of them are the same thing over and over again. So why is that a challenge? Well, A, it's expensive because unfortunately labour is often the highest cost in a business. Secondly, humans unfortunately are designed to make mistakes, and therefore you can end up with incorrect data going into systems. And that can lead to having negative impact on relationships with suppliers, but more importantly, potentially your customers, and can sometimes reduce morale within your employees. So that's the challenge that pretty much every organisation that I speak to has to face. So what's important then is when they go on an intelligent process automation journey and a digital transformation journey, they look at what the problem is they're trying to overcome, what the outcome is they're looking for, and ensure they choose the right tools to address the problem. And this is where I want to bring you onto this slide here. So we refer to this as the volume and variation dilemma. So if you remember at the beginning of this session, I was talking about robotic process automation, and robotic process automation has a really good place in organizations. However, it has its limitations. So RPA historically has the ability to process structured data only and is totally rules-based. So where you have processes where you're only handling structured data, where it's all totally rules-based, RPA would definitely be the right technology to use. You wouldn't look to use something such as our software InStream, which has got the machine learning and the artificial intelligence. It would be trying to crack a walnut with a sledgehammer. So RPA in that instance would absolutely be the right technology. However, when you move into other business processes, so the ones we've just talked about, particularly in your unstructured processes, such as customer correspondence and claims, your traditional RPA is never going to be able to cope with that, because in order to cope with that variation of unstructured documents, you would have to constantly have people carrying out that configuration, that low code, if you like, making those changes to templates, making changes to rules, and it becomes uneconomical to manage. So that's when you would start to look at something like the InStream solution, which has got the learning, which has the natural language processing, the artificial intelligence. So if we take a very simple use case, such as invoice processing, and I know it's not an exciting one, but actually it's one that every single organization has to cope with. Every company has to process invoices. So where you have low variation, low numbers of suppliers, then actually you can probably use RPA. That's probably the best tool, because so long as you ensure that your configuration in your robots matches every single robot that you have in that end-to-end process, so their tasks follow on one from the other, and when you make a change in one, you make a change in the other, it's not hugely complex to manage. So RPA would be the right tool for you there. However, in the enterprise space and global organizations who have high volume, your RPA tools is absolutely not the right solution, because you would have to be making changes every day to cope with the variation in the documents, layouts, in the changes which the suppliers will make in an invoice process. And that's where InStream becomes the right solution for the process, because when a document comes in, if there's any discrepancies, if it's an exception, if it's a new kind of format, if it's a new layout, if it's a new supplier, then all you need to do is have the InStream machine learning applied, and the human in the loop, as we were talking about just now, will carry out that teaching in the process of their normal working job. And at the end of this presentation, I'm actually going to show you a little demonstration so you can see it happening in real time. So it's about choosing the right technology to address the right problem. You've still got over here, and I think it's important to highlight this as well, there are still processes, there are still times where you may well decide to keep a fully manual process because there is not a business case to justify investing either in RPA technology or machine learning, intelligent process automation type technology. And that's often where you have high document variation and low volumes. And in those instances, it actually makes much more sense to leave human beings carrying out that process. So how does the human in the loop, no code, no fuss work? Well, it's actually quite simple. And in terms of the user experience, we've tried to make it as seamless and easy as possible. Because what we don't want to do is be in a position where you're having to invest in professional services, whether that be internally or externally to your business, to be able to change cope with the change in document structures and the learning. So the way that InStream works is when a document is received into an organisation, if InStream's got not much knowledge, if it's got low confidence or low accuracy on how to process that document, it will show it to a human. And this human being is going to be a person that processes these documents manually before InStream, if you like. And they carry out the same job that they've always done. They just do it in a slightly different way. So in an invoice process, these would be your accounts payable clerks. And rather than a document coming in and them having to either copy and paste or key like lightning, they're amazing, these people, data into an ERP or a finance system, what will happen is they will have an image of the document on their screen and then a simple indexing dialog box. And all they have to do is point and click on the screen the information that needs extracting into each of the fields in the dialog box. So all we're saying to them is, you know what, do what you've done historically, but just do it in a slightly different way. You don't need to be technical. You don't need to have to know how to code. You don't need to drag and drop using low code. Just do your job in a slightly different way. And what that means is that as the humans carry out that processing, the output from the other end becomes structured that can be delivered into the line of business system, which is either finance system, ERP system, but actually InStream can interact and integrate with all types of different systems. But every time a human is involved and carrying out that teaching, if you like, then the software will learn from that. It's like it's looking over their shoulder. So as the software sees more and more examples of each document type, its confidence increases, its accuracy increases, and you will then get to a point where you can turn on straight through processing, which means that your documents coming through don't always need to be seen by a human. They will only need to handle the exceptions. And the way they handle their exceptions is literally just carrying out the same job that they've always done, just using a slightly different indexing dialog. The benefit there is A, you often reduce your errors, but B, you end up with a much happier workforce. So if we have a quick look at the benefits here of the human in the loop, you don't need to have technical knowledge. You don't need to create templates. So there are quite a few products out there at the moment outside of your traditional RPA, which is which requires people to carry out an element of this low coding. So they're still going to have to do some template generation. With machine learning, you get continual optimization. So that optimization comes in the form of the learning itself and increased knowledge about a document and therefore the ability to turn on straight through processing. But actually the way we work with our customers is we constantly review their processes and work with them to improve the workflow characteristics of InStream as well, so that they get the absolute best value out of the software that they've invested in. Augmenting employees' roles. Effectively, what we mean by that is they're not having to do the same repetitive manual tasks over and over and over. So they are able to go off and do much more value-based tasks for the organisation. So from a business case perspective, not only are you reducing the amount of repetitive work, you're reducing the average handling time to process a document, but you're also enabling those employees to go off and do more valuable roles within your company, which gives value to you and value to your employees, which ends up with actually improved morale. And we saw this a few years ago when we first started working with Virgin Trains. And one of the challenges they had was high turnover of temps and low morale within their customer services team, because the customer services team ended up doing lots and lots of data entry. And when InStream came along, that data entry was significantly reduced. So they were able to then spend time with the customers, and what they found was a huge increase in employee morale. And as you know, any employee morale increase has a positive impact on an organisation. So I've talked a lot here about what we term as no code and no fuss. I've talked about the human in the loop. I've talked about machine learning. What I'd like to do now is to bring that to life a little bit with a video. So China's just going to set that up. And this is going to be a demonstration of how the no code, no fuss and the human in the loop works. So what you can see on my screen right now isn't very exciting. It's actually a report and it's blank, and I'm showing you the blank report so you can see there's nothing in there to start off with. So in order for a human, the human in the loop, to be able to interact with InStream and teach it, you have the InStream client, which is currently a desktop client, so they'd have it downloaded on their desktops. And then on the top right-hand side of the screen, you can see a little diagram which gives us an overview of what's happening in the data center. So what's happening now is we're downloading a document from a file, and for the purposes of the demonstration, this is a brand new supplier that InStream's never seen any sample documents of, so it's got no knowledge. In the real world, this part of the process wouldn't happen. You'd receive that document in either as an email attachment, it might be posted to you, so you scan it in. You wouldn't ordinarily have to download that. We just do this for the demonstration. So the document's now gone off to the data center into the InStream platform with the machine learning, the intelligence, etc. And because InStream's got no knowledge, it's showing me the document. It's also showing me an indexing dialog and a list of potential customers or suppliers. And that comes from the finance system or the ERP system. My job now is to teach InStream about this supplier or this customer. So you can see I've highlighted Pasti Presto, which is the customer on the page. And I've now just linked that to that account within my finance system. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to index the rest of the header level information. And you can see it's nice and quick, and all I'm doing is pointing and clicking. And then I'm going to index and teach InStream about all the line levels. So in a manual process, processing line level detail is very time consuming and obviously much more likely to have mistakes. But what we've done is designed the software so it's really simple and quick to process line level detail. So what you can see there, within probably 35, 40 seconds, as a human, I've actually taught InStream about that document. If you keep an eye on the top right-hand side, you'll see in a minute the light bulb will flash, and that shows me that InStream has actually learnt from the actions that I've just carried out as a human. And don't forget, all I am is an AP clerk. I'm not doing anything clever. This is a second document from the same company, and you may have noticed there that there's more line items. So on the first document, there was about 4 or 5 line items. And on this second document, there's about 8 or 9. So this time when the document goes up into the data center, InStream's got some knowledge. So it goes into its memory bank and says, okay, have I seen a document from this company before? And whereas the first document, the answer was low, I have no idea how to process it. This time round, it's got some knowledge. It's got that information that it learned from the first actions that I carried out as an operator. So now I'm expecting that document to still come back down onto my screen along with the indexing dialog, but this time round I'm expecting InStream to have tried to extract the information itself. So we can see here that InStream's been able to identify the right company. It's got all of that header level detail correct. And then we can just check a number of these different line items, and they are all correctly extracted. So very quickly, that second document, I've actually been able to process in probably 10 seconds of average handling time as a human. Now, while that's processing, I want to show you this document here because that other one was beautifully laid out. This one's not. So this is often what we see in processes. So you've got lines covering two columns covering two lines, which for software to learn is actually really quite difficult. So you saw the other document learning from zero knowledge. This one we've actually taught in stream with about 12 or 13 different documents from this particular company. So it will take longer for the software to learn complex layouts than it will those beautifully laid out neat rows and columns. But the most important thing is that the learning continues and the amount of effort that a human needs to input is reduced every single time. So we can see here that this has dropped back down into my screen. We can see InStream's got the right company, and then all of that header level detail is correctly identified, and we've got some of that line level as well here. So all of a sudden, I'm not spending all day doing this indexing. I'm spending maybe an hour or 2 hours and then going off and having conversations with suppliers, etc. So if we now go back to the report, we can see all of those individual line items from those two Pasti Presto orders, and you can see InStream picked up all those additional lines from the second order, and then the Grange Hotels one in there as well. So that just gives you an idea about how easy it is to use InStream, about the no code, no fuss, and about the fact that actually you don't need technical people, you don't need to be able to code, you don't need to create templates or do configuration of rules or anything complex. All of that happens just as a natural consequence of processing the documents. So I thank you very much for your time today. I hope that was helpful and informative. Apologies, we're not able to take questions during this session. However, on the screen now, you can see that we've got two ways of sending questions across to us, either hello@celaton.com or directly to myself, gina.gray@celaton.com. I would really welcome an opportunity to speak with all of you at some point about how we may be able to help you, or if there's any business processes that you believe you've got challenges with. And we will be sending out a copy of this to all the attendees. So you will have that, including that little demonstration at the end to peruse at your leisure. I thank you very much for your time today. I know everybody's busy, especially with the different crazy world we're living in at the moment. And I wish you well and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.